Hi there, and welcome back to Choose Better Living. This is the space where you and I explore ideas that help us understand ourselves, live with more intention, and become a little better every day. In this episode, I want to share insights from the book The Way We're Working Isn't Working by Tony Schwartz, Jean Gomez, and Catherine McCarthy, a book that challenges how we think about work, energy, and what it really takes to perform at our best without burning out. In the modern workplace, the unspoken standard is always more, bigger, and faster. You and I are expected to satisfy more clients, respond to more emails, answer more calls, complete more tasks, attend more meetings, travel to more places, and work longer hours just to avoid falling behind. Information is overwhelming. Communication technology is everywhere. Transaction systems grow at an exponential rate. All of this creates a constant sense of urgency. At first glance, a culture built on speed, scale, and expansion seems like it should produce exceptional value. But reality tells a different story. When there is too much of even good things, performance can actually decline. The nonstop culture of urgency in most organizations slowly erodes creativity, quality, engagement, thoughtful decision-making, productivity, and ultimately performance itself. Today, workers are paying a heavy price for this culture of busyness. We work more hours and stay later, yet we are trapped in a downward spiral. Our ability to focus decreases. We have less time to do the work we are actually responsible for. We lose opportunities to think deeply and long-term. Our physical health declines. Stress becomes constant. And eventually, we feel too exhausted to truly rest or enjoy life. Back in 2003, Tony Schwartz and his research team launched a project called the Energy Project. More than 12,000 people across 73 countries participated. The goal was to help organizations better understand the real needs of their employees. After more than a year of research, the results revealed a troubling pattern. Most participants felt exhausted, anxious, and deeply dissatisfied with their work lives. 64% reported sleeping less than 7 to 8 hours a night. 73% said they struggled to focus on one task for a sustained period of time. 64% frequently felt irritated, impatient, or anxious at work. 66% said they were doing what was demanded of them rather than what they genuinely wanted to do. 61% spent too little time doing work they were good at and actually enjoyed. And 80% said they spent most of their time reacting to urgent demands instead of focusing on work that created long-term value. As a result, both health and quality of life declined significantly. And yet, the culture of busyness continues to convince us that working harder and longer is the only path to success. According to the authors, this belief is fundamentally wrong. We are being driven by a dangerous assumption. We believe that the best way to achieve more is to spend more time working and to work without stopping. But the more we overwork without recovery, the less capable we become. We lose flexibility. We react poorly under pressure. We become irritable, distracted, emotionally detached, and far less effective. Working continuously does not lead to higher performance. In fact, real success requires a smarter way of working. Working smarter means intentionally creating a rhythm of performance. You focus deeply for a specific period of time. Then you deliberately rest and recover. Human beings are not machines. We cannot operate at high speed, without interruption, for long periods of time. We are built to function in natural, regular cycles. Working smarter is not just about alternating work and rest. The core of this approach is learning how to use and manage your energy effectively in order to perform at your best. The authors also point out that the modern exchange of time for money is deeply flawed. It is a one-sided transaction where both individuals and organizations try to extract as much as possible from one another. In the end, neither side truly gets what it needs. Things begin to change when you reconnect with your work and your life by intentionally cultivating your energy and developing the strengths you already possess. At the same time, Organizations must learn how to support this process. They need to create environments that encourage focus, commitment, passion, and genuine engagement. Only when the essential needs of individuals are met can performance truly thrive. At the heart of this idea are four core human needs. The first is physical sustainability. This is your ability to care for your body through proper nutrition, movement, sleep, and rest. Physical energy is the foundation that supports all other human needs. Unfortunately, in a culture that constantly demands more and faster results, self-care is often the first thing we sacrifice. We stay up late to work. We do not sleep enough. We move too little. We eat too much or too little. We rely on fast food and sugar. We eliminate rest and recovery. As a result, our bodies remain in a constant state of exhaustion and depletion. The second need is emotional safety. This is the need to feel accepted, valued, and respected. Your emotional state has a powerful influence on how well you work. When you feel undervalued or threatened, your body shifts into survival mode. Fear, anxiety, distraction, and emotional drain take over. But when you experience positive emotions and feel secure, you become more resilient. You handle pressure better. You stay grounded and steady when facing challenges. The third need is psychological expression. This is your need to express yourself and use your talents and individuality. When you are able to do this, your focus increases and motivation naturally follows. But in a world filled with constant interruptions and competing demands, we are forced to juggle too many tasks at once. Sustained focus becomes rare. And when focus disappears, the quality of both our work and our lives suffers. The fourth and final need is spiritual meaning. This is the inner energy that guides your behavior and gives direction to your life. When you know what you stand for, your values become an anchor. They help you remain steady in times of change and uncertainty. They shape your choices and give your efforts a deeper purpose. If you and I want to live healthier lives, work more effectively, and avoid being pulled into the constant rush of modern life, Tony Schwartz argues that we must actively participate in managing and optimizing all four sources of human energy. This process begins not with doing more, but with becoming more aware. The first step is developing self-awareness, because we cannot change what we do not notice. This means learning to recognize who you are, while also expanding your awareness beyond the present moment. It requires long-term vision, the ability to move past immediate gratification, and the willingness to delay short-term comfort in favor of sustainable growth. It also means broadening your perspective so you can move beyond narrow self-interest and contribute greater value to others and to the community. And finally, it calls for depth. The depth to observe yourself honestly, to accept what cannot be changed, to strengthen what can be improved, and to grow into a distinct individual with a clear sense of identity. Once awareness is in place, the next step is changing habits. Research shows that 90% of human behavior is driven by existing habits. When your health declines or your performance drops, it is often not because you lack motivation or ability, but because you are operating on automatic patterns that no longer serve you. There is one more critical element to consider. If you work full-time for a company or an organization, you must learn how to consciously build and manage the relationship between yourself and the institution you work for. Performance is not only a personal responsibility, it is shaped by the environment you are part of. With that foundation in place, we can now move into how each of the four primary sources of energy can be developed, starting with physical sustainability. If physical energy is the foundation of all human energy, then sleep is the foundation of physical energy. The National Sleep Foundation recommends that adults get between 7 and 9 hours of quality sleep each night. The director of the Sleep and Neuroimaging Laboratory at the University of California, Berkeley once said that we often believe staying awake allows us to get more done. He argued that this belief is deeply mistaken. In reality, when you sleep well, you are capable of doing far more. In his memoir, White Nights, Former Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin described his experience of sleep deprivation while imprisoned by the Soviet security forces. He wrote that a fog descends on the mind of a person being interrogated. The spirit becomes utterly exhausted. The legs tremble. And the only remaining desire is to sleep. Anyone who has experienced this, he said, understands that the craving for sleep is so powerful that even hunger and thirst cannot compare. Lack of sleep has a severe impact on physical health. A long-term Harvard Nurses Health study that followed 80,000 nurses over 25 years found a strong link between chronic sleep deprivation and increased risk of serious illnesses, including breast cancer, stomach cancer, and cardiovascular disease. Nurses who slept an average of 5 hours per night had a higher risk of heart disease than those who slept 6 hours. Those who slept 6 hours faced greater risk than those who slept 7. Nurses who worked night shifts for many years had a 60% higher risk compared to others. The consequences of insufficient sleep are profound. Simply recognizing the true cost of sleep deprivation is already half the battle, because most of us dramatically underestimate the damage caused by sleeping too little. So, how do you sleep well in practice? Once you understand the importance of sleep, you must choose to prioritize it. If you cannot wake up later, then you need to go to bed earlier. The key to quality sleep is relaxation. You can support this by listening to calming music, drinking herbal tea, or reading a book. It is important to avoid relying on sleeping pills or alcohol because over time they create harmful side effects rather than real rest. One of the most natural ways to prepare for sleep is to lie quietly for 30 to 60 minutes before turning off the lights. During this time, you should avoid all stimulation. That includes email, social media, internet browsing, and intense conversations. Sleep begins long before your head touches the pillow. From sleep, we move naturally into movement and physical development. A large meta-analysis conducted by a research group in London reviewed hundreds of studies and concluded that exercise improves mental health and overall well-being. It reduces depression and anxiety while enhancing cognitive function. In a study known as SMILE, which stands for Standard Medical Intervention and Long-Term Exercise, researchers found that vigorous exercise for 30 to 45 minutes per session, 3 times per week, was as effective as antidepressant medication in reducing symptoms of depression. Regular physical activity has also been shown to reduce anxiety, improve prefrontal cortex function, strengthen muscles, and support the cardiovascular and digestive systems. As your body becomes stronger, your capacity to work effectively increases. Physical fitness becomes a critical foundation for sustained performance. So, how should you exercise? Organizations such as the American College of Sports Medicine and the American Heart Association recommend engaging in moderate physical activity 3 to 6 days per week for 20 to 45 minutes per session. Researchers also suggest that this time can be divided into 2 or 3 shorter sessions during the day, such as 10 or 20 minutes at a time. Alongside sleep and movement, rest plays an equally important role. Just like sleep, intentional rest increases productivity. Research shows that Americans waste an average of 439 million paid vacation days each year. In 2008, 1/3 of Americans reported that they never took vacations. 33% planned vacations lasting 7 days or less, while only 14% planned vacations of 2 weeks. At the same time, a growing body of research shows a direct connection between rest and performance. A 2006 study conducted at Ernst & Young found that for every additional 10 hours of vacation employees took per year, their annual productivity increased by 8%. From rest, we move into nutrition. Today, thanks to technology, most of us no longer perform physically demanding labor. Yet the amount of food we consume continues to rise, often far beyond what our bodies actually need. We frequently consume high-calorie foods with low nutritional value, such as fast food and sugary drinks. Over time, this contributes to elevated blood sugar, increased risk of diabetes, and obesity. Extreme dieting creates a sense of deprivation, which often leads to overeating later. This cycle, known as the yo-yo effect, causes many people to fail in their attempts to manage weight. On the other hand, eating too little and then compensating with large amounts of calorie-dense food places serious strain on the body. So, what should you eat? You do not need to eliminate pleasure from food. When your body craves enjoyable foods, it is acceptable to have them in moderation. The key is quantity, not prohibition. You also need to proactively design an eating pattern that fits you. One effective strategy is to decide in advance what you will eat, how much you will eat, and how long you will wait between meals. This reduces impulsive decisions and helps maintain balance. In your daily diet, prioritize foods with a low glycemic index that release energy gradually into the bloodstream, such as fruits and vegetables. If you work in an office environment and want to reduce snacking on sugary drinks and sweets, you can prepare healthy options ahead of time. Nuts and pre-cut fruit are simple ways to provide steady, healthy energy throughout the day. From physical sustainability, we move into emotional safety. Emotions have a direct impact on performance. Our emotional states tend to fall into distinct zones. When you are in a performance state, you feel calm, optimistic, enthusiastic, committed, and energized. In a survival state, impatience, irritability, anger, and a sense of failure dominate. In a recovery state, you feel relaxed, at ease, open, and receptive. In a state of depletion, you experience exhaustion, emptiness, discouragement, sadness, and disappointment. When you are in your optimal emotional state, confident and focused, you perform well and achieve better outcomes in both work and life. In contrast, periods dominated by stress and negative emotions are when performance suffers the most. This clearly shows that emotions are not separate from productivity. They are one of its strongest drivers. Emotions such as anger, fear, frustration, and loss of control are common in the workplace. Many leaders still rely on these negative emotions to push for results. While this approach may produce short-term compliance, it often comes at a high cost to trust, creativity, and long-term performance. When you or I face conflict with a client, a manager, or a coworker, our bodies often react automatically through a fight or flight response. Negative events activate the amygdala, a small but powerful part of the brain responsible for processing emotion and triggering survival reactions. One of the most significant effects of negative emotions is that they pull our attention toward what is wrong instead of what is right. Psychologists refer to this tendency as negativity bias. Negativity bias means that the human brain reacts faster, more intensely, and for a longer time to negative experiences than to positive ones. So, how do you manage your emotions in a healthier and more effective way? According to the authors, emotional management begins with investing attention in your own emotional awareness. Recognizing and consciously acknowledging what you are feeling is the critical first step. Whenever you notice a strong or impulsive reaction rising, the most powerful choice you can make is to pause and calmly observe your emotional state. For example, when anger appears, start by naming it. You might say to yourself, "I am feeling angry." That simple recognition creates space between you and the emotion. From there, you can step away from the situation if possible. Take slow, deep breaths. Give yourself time to think before responding. Acting out of anger rarely leads to constructive outcomes and often causes harm to others, regardless of whether the mistake originated with you or with someone else. At times, managing emotions also means changing your perspective. The authors recommend experimenting with 3 different lenses that help you see situations more clearly. The first is the reflective lens. When you feel triggered, ask yourself 2 questions. What are the actual facts of this situation? And what story am I telling myself about those facts? These questions help you step outside your immediate experience and observe it rather than react to it. The reflective lens encourages healthy skepticism and prevents you from blindly trusting your first interpretation. The second is the reverse lens. This involves deliberately stepping into the position of the other person. You might ask yourself, How does this person feel, and why might they be acting this way? Using the reverse lens does not require you to abandon your own perspective. Instead, it expands your understanding by allowing you to see the situation through another set of eyes. The third is the long lens. This lens allows you to look back at difficult events over time and search for lessons and opportunities for growth. Imagine losing your job. In the moment, the experience may severely damage your confidence, but it does not define your entire life. Eventually, you may find new work. During the period of unemployment, you likely spent a great deal of time reflecting. Rather than letting that experience fade without meaning, you can ask yourself what it taught you about your work, your strengths, and your limitations. You can ask whether it helped you discover a new direction. Reviewing past events in this way allows you to make mistakes, learn from them, and respond more wisely in the present and the future. Beyond managing negative emotions, it is equally important to actively cultivate positive ones. During your work, take time to recognize the real value of what you have accomplished. Appreciation reinforces motivation and emotional resilience. At the same time, you must learn to take responsibility for your own mistakes and failures. Understand that every setback carries a lesson. When you treat failure as feedback rather than as a verdict on your worth, you create space for growth and skill development. From emotional safety, we now move into mental energy and self-expression. The psychologist David Lucan defined mental energy as the ability to sustain attention on a problem over time, resist distraction, and continue searching for solutions. Unfortunately, we live in an era of overwhelming information and historically low levels of focus. Each day, more than 2 billion emails are sent worldwide. By 2009, there were an estimated 75 million bloggers and roughly 50 million websites. Each year, more than 500,000 books are published, along with 400,000 academic journals and 18,000 general interest magazines. In 2005, when Google announced the number of web pages it indexed, the total exceeded 8 billion. And on top of this flood of information, modern work environments often demand constant multitasking. Taking on multiple tasks at once has become one of the primary forces fragmenting our attention and weakening our ability to focus deeply. According to the authors, our ability to focus is constantly fragmented by two main types of distraction. The first comes from within. It is the inner voice, the non-stop stream of thoughts running through your mind. The second comes from the outside world. These external distractions include social media, email, text messages, and constant digital notifications. To counter this, the authors suggest a powerful mental habit that strengthens focus. When it comes to doing what truly matters, you and I must slow down enough to think. We need to deliberately identify priorities instead of rushing into the next task that pops into our heads or reacting automatically to whatever appears on a screen. Focus begins with choice, not speed. Along with clarifying priorities, it is equally important to reduce external distractions. This means intentionally turning off social media during work periods, placing your phone out of sight, and disabling notification sounds. These small decisions create space for deeper concentration. From managing distraction, we naturally move into learning how to nourish the brain itself. The brain consists of two hemispheres, the left and the right. The left hemisphere is responsible for language and logical thinking. The right hemisphere supports visual processing, creativity, and intuitive pattern recognition. In today's information-saturated environment, the brain often operates inefficiently because it is overwhelmed by constant input. Over time, this overload causes thinking to become rigid and inflexible. Nourishing the brain means learning how to create conditions that allow both hemispheres to function in balance and develop fully. When the brain is well nourished, creativity increases. Thinking becomes more flexible. Curiosity grows. And you become more open to learning and new ideas at work and in life. To cultivate creativity, you can intentionally create periods of solitude in a quiet, private space. At times, Creativity can also be supported through artistic activities such as drawing, dancing, singing, journaling, or simply taking relaxed walks. At the same time, nourishing the brain also requires strengthening analytical skills. This includes planning thoughtfully and learning how to evaluate information carefully rather than consuming it passively. Most importantly, this process requires personal responsibility. We cannot blame circumstances for everything. You must learn to take responsibility for your own mistakes, complete the work entrusted to you, and choose the right tasks. When you do this consistently, your work can shift from being a burden to becoming a source of inspiration. From mental energy and self-expression, we now arrive at the deepest source of energy, meaning, and spiritual strength. According to the authors, building inner strength requires organizations to clearly define shared values and a purpose that goes beyond profit alone. But this process always begins with the individual. Each person must clearly identify the values they represent. There are several questions that can help guide this reflection. Who are you? What do you stand for? What do you truly want? What is your purpose? Writing down examples for each answer can deepen your understanding. These answers do not come from theory alone. They emerge through personal experience and honest self-reflection. Only when you understand what you want, what you are moving toward, and which core values guide the person you are becoming, can you consistently choose actions that align with those values. This alignment builds inner strength. It helps you resist distraction, practice self-control, and stay focused on what truly matters. Knowing yourself is a critical foundation. It gives you the strength to endure pressure, uncertainty, and difficulty in both work and life. This principle does not apply only to individuals. Organizations also need shared values that guide behavior and decision-making. Strong organizations encourage a shift from I to we. When people move beyond personal interest and align around common purpose, collective energy increases. A healthy individual combined with a strong organization creates the conditions for real breakthroughs at work. And that is where sustainable performance, meaning, and better living truly begin.